Jake stared at the woman stepping down from the stagecoach, his weathered hands frozen on the reins. She wasn't supposed to be beautiful. The advertisement promised plain, practical, a woman who'd work hard and ask no questions. But the creature before him had eyes like storm clouds and lips that could make a man forget his prayers. His chest tightened with a fear he hadn't felt since his first gunfight. The morning had started like any other on the Broken Arrow Ranch. Jake McAllister stood on his porch, coffee steaming in the dry Montana air, watching the sun crawl over the mountains. At 34, he'd grown comfortable with solitude, the kind of comfort that comes from knowing exactly what each day would bring. Then Pastor Williams rode up with news that changed everything. "She's coming today, Jake, the mail-order bride from back east." Jake's coffee went cold in his hands. 3 months ago, in a moment of whiskey-fueled loneliness, he'd placed a damned advertisement, seeking practical woman for marriage. Ranch work required, playing appearance preferred. He'd expected to forget about it, hoped no one would answer. "You sure about this?" Pastor Williams asked, studying Jake's face. "It's not too late to. A man keeps his word." Jake cut him off, though his voice carried less conviction than usual. By noon, the whole situation felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He'd ridden into town expecting to meet some sturdy farm woman with calloused hands and realistic expectations. Instead, Elizabeth Harper stepped off that stagecoach like something out of a fever dream. She was tall, willowy, with auburn hair that caught the sunlight and skin like fresh cream. Her dress was simple but clean, and when she looked at him with those gray eyes, Jake felt something crack inside his chest. Something he buried deep after Mary died. "Mr. McAllister?" Her voice was softer than spring rain. "I'm Elizabeth Harper. You're intended." Jake touched the brim of his hat, unable to find words. This woman didn't belong on a cattle ranch. She belonged in parlors and drawing rooms, not slopping pigs and mending fences. And the way she looked at him, curious, hopeful, made him realize he'd made a terrible mistake. As they rode toward the ranch in uncomfortable silence, Jake felt the weight of what he'd done settling on his shoulders. This beautiful creature would wither and die out here, and it would be his fault. But worse than that was the way his heart hammered every time she spoke, the way he had to force himself not to stare. He'd asked for plain for a reason. Beautiful women were dangerous. They made men do foolish things. 3 days into Elizabeth's stay, Jake realized his problems went deeper than he'd imagined. She wasn't just beautiful. She was stubborn, intelligent, and completely unprepared for ranch life. "You can't milk a cow wearing gloves," he said, watching her struggle in the barn that first morning. "In Boston, ladies always wear gloves," she replied, chin raised in defiance. "This ain't Boston." But she learned. God help him, she learned everything he taught her. She burned biscuits and ruined laundry, but she never quit, never complained. And every evening when she sat on the porch mending his shirts, humming softly to herself, Jake felt his carefully constructed walls crumbling. The breaking point came when Tom Bradley rode up on the 4th day. Tom owned a neighboring spread and had been widowed 2 years back. He was handsome in a clean, city way that Jake never was, and when Elizabeth smiled at him over dinner, Jake's hands clenched into fists under the table. "Mighty fine woman you got yourself, Jake," Tom said later, helping load supplies from his wagon. "Real beautiful. Makes a man wonder what she sees in a rough customer like you." "We ain't married yet," Jake said quietly, but his voice carried a warning. Tom laughed. "Well, if you change your mind about going through with it, I'd be happy to." Jake's fist connected with Tom's jaw before the sentence was finished. Tom went down hard, blood trickling from his split lip. Elizabeth screamed from the porch. "Jake, what are you doing?" Tom climbed to his feet, spitting blood. "Guess that answers that question," he said, mounting his horse. "But remember, Jake, a woman that beautiful has choices. Don't take too long making up your mind. As Tom rode away, Jake felt something precious slip through his fingers. Elizabeth stared at him like he was a stranger, fear flickering in her storm-gray eyes. He'd shown her what he really was, a violent man who settled things with his fists. The kind of man who'd drive away everything good in his life. That night, he heard her crying through the thin walls and knew he was already losing her. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Jake sat on his porch, bottle in hand, staring at the stars and remembering Mary's face. She'd been beautiful, two golden hair and laughing eyes that made him believe in happy endings. They'd married young, full of dreams about building something together. Cancer took her slowly, stealing her beauty piece by piece until only pain remained. Jake had watched, helpless, as the woman he loved wasted away in their marriage bed. Her last words echoed in his memory. "Don't let this make you hard. Jake, promise me you'll love again." He'd made that promise, then broken it every day since by building walls around his heart. The mail-order bride advertisement had been practical, safe a way to have companionship without risking the kind of love that could destroy him. But Elizabeth had shattered his plans just by existing. "Mr. McAllister?" Her voice startled him from his memories. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a shawl, hair loose around her shoulders. Even in the moonlight, she was heartbreakingly beautiful. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. She sat beside him, careful to maintain distance. "I wanted to apologize for earlier, when I screamed. I've never seen. I don't understand why you hit Mr. Bradley." Jake took a long pull from the bottle. He said something that needed answering. "About me? About us?" He looked at her then, really looked. "Elizabeth, you need to understand something. I ain't a good man. I'm rough, and I'm mean when crossed, and I got ghost that won't let me rest. You deserve better than what I can give you." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What if I don't want better? What if I want you?" The words hit him like a physical blow. He stood abruptly, bottle falling from nerveless fingers. "You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying." She rose too, stepped closer. "I came here expecting duty, Mr. McAllister, a practical arrangement. But I'm finding something else entirely." Jake backed away like she was on fire. Don't do this to either of us." He fled into the house, leaving her alone under the stars. But her words followed him, echoing Mary's voice. "Don't let this make you hard." The confrontation Jake had been dreading came at dawn, in the form of Sheriff Coleman and two deputies riding up to his gate. "Jake," the sheriff said, tipping his hat. "Need to have a word. This about Tom Bradley?" "Among other things." Coleman's voice was grave, his jaws broken in two places. "And there's been talk." Jake felt Elizabeth emerge from the house behind him, felt her presence like heat against his back. "What kind of talk?" "About you keeping that woman against her will. About her being afraid." The words hit Jake like bullets. He turned to look at Elizabeth, saw the color drain from her face. "That's not," she started. "Ma'am," Coleman interrupted gently. "If you want to leave, we can escort you back to town. Get you passage back east." The silence stretched like a taut wire. Jake stared at Elizabeth, memorizing her face, preparing for the inevitable. Of course she'd leave. Any sensible woman would run from a man who solved problems with violence. "I'm not being held against my will," Elizabeth said finally, her voice steady. "I'm here by choice." Coleman frowned. "Ma'am, you don't have to." "Sheriff." Elizabeth stepped forward, chin raised in that defiant way Jake was learning to recognize. "I appreciate your concern, but I know my own mind. Mr. McAllister is a good man who made a mistake. I won't abandon him for that." Jake's heart stopped. She was defending him. This beautiful, refined woman was standing between him and the law, protecting him when she should be saving herself. "Well," Coleman said after a moment, "if that's how it is." "But Jake," he fixed him with a hard stare, "you lay hands on Tom Bradley again, and I'll throw you in jail. Broken jaw or not, he's got friends in this county. After the sheriff left, Jake and Elizabeth stood in the yard, not looking at each other. The morning sun painted everything gold, but Jake felt like he was standing in shadow. Why? He asked finally. Because, she said, her voice barely audible, I'm falling in love with you, Jake McAllister. And I hope you might be falling in love with me too. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. He was in love with her. Completely, desperately, dangerously in love. And that terrified him more than any gunfight ever had. Jake spent the day avoiding Elizabeth, throwing himself into hard labor like it might cure what ailed him. He fixed fence posts that didn't need fixing, cleaned stalls that were already clean, did anything to keep from thinking about her words. I'm falling in love with you. But evening came anyway, and with it the inevitable conversation. She found him in the barn, brushing down his horse with unnecessary vigor. We can't keep avoiding each other, she said softly. Ain't avoiding nothing. He didn't look up from his work. Jake. Her hand touched his arm, gentle but insistent. Look at me. He turned and nearly lost his breath. In the golden lamplight, she looked like something from a dream hair catching the glow, eyes soft with understanding. Tell me about her, she said. About Mary. The name hit him like a punch. How do you talk in your sleep sometimes. And there's a picture in your bedroom, a beautiful woman with yellow hair. Jake's hand stilled on the brush. He'd kept Mary's photograph face down in his drawer for 3 years. But last week, he'd pulled it out, stared at it, trying to remember how to feel something other than guilt. She died, he said simply. Cancer. Took 2 years to kill her, and I watched every minute of it. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I promised her I'd love again. But I can't. His voice broke. I can't watch another woman I love die, Elizabeth. I can't survive it twice. No. So you asked for a plain wife, she said, understanding flooding her voice. Someone you couldn't love. Someone safe. She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her soap, feel the warmth of her skin. But I'm not safe, am I? The word came out rough, torn from his chest. You're the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to me. Good, she whispered, reaching up to touch his cheek. Because safe isn't living, Jake. It's just existing. He caught her hand, pressed it against his face. Elizabeth, I know you love me, she said. I can see it every time you look at me. The question is, are you brave enough to admit it? The challenge hung between them like a gauntlet thrown down. Jake McAllister, who'd faced down rustlers and wild horses in winter storms that could kill a man, found himself more terrified than he'd ever been. But maybe, just maybe, he was brave enough for this. The wedding took place at sunset, 3 days later, on the ridge overlooking Jake's land. Pastor Williams spoke the words while Elizabeth stood beside Jake in her mother's white dress, looking like an angel touched by golden light. But it was the vows Jake wrote himself that brought tears to every eye present. Elizabeth Harper, he said, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. I can't promise you an easy life. This land is hard, and I'm harder. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, or that I won't sometimes be the man you saw in the yard that day. But I can promise you this, I'll love you with everything I have, for as long as I draw breath. And when my time comes, I'll love you still. On the other side of the sky, she cried then, tears streaming down her face as she spoke her own vows. Jake McAllister, I didn't come west looking for easy. I came looking for real. And you, her voice broke with emotion, you read the most real thing I've ever known. I love your strength and your gentleness, your silence and your storm. I love all of you, even the broken parts. Especially the broken parts. When Pastor Williams pronounced them husband and wife, Jake kissed her like a drowning man finding air. The crowd cheered, but he heard nothing except the sound of his own heart, finally beating true again. Later, As the guests headed home and night settled over the ranch, Jake and Elizabeth sat on their porch now watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Any regrets?" he asked, taking her hand. She leaned against his shoulder, solid and warm and real. "Only one." His heart clenched. "What's that?" "That it took me so long to find you." Jake smiled then, the first real smile he'd worn in years. In the distance, a coyote called to the moon, and somewhere an owl answered. The sounds of his land, his home. They're home now. "Think you can be happy here?" he asked. Elizabeth tilted her face up to his eyes bright with starlight and promise. "Jake McAllister," she said, her voice soft as a prayer. "I think I was born to be happy here. With you." He kissed her again, tasting forever on her lips, and knew that some risks were worth taking. Some loves were worth the fear. The heart, he realized, was the bravest thing of all.